Hi, and welcome to Untethered with Jen Liss, the podcast that's here to help you free yourself from the crap that's holding you back so you can claim the life you're meant to live. I'm your host, Jen, and in this episode, I am going to talk about where I see the magic in the world. Let's dive in. Hi, friend, it's Jen. Welcome back to the podcast. So for today's episode, I thought, well, actually, my podcast editor, Joey, had this thought that, in every interview, there's a question that I ask the person, which is, where do you see the magic in the world? And I, myself, have never answered this question on this podcast. Now, to me, I was like, well, it's a given. Everybody should just know. And Joey's like, I don't know. I think you should probably answer that question. I was like, you know what? That's a great idea for an episode. So welcome to that episode. So I ask every person this question because, first of all, when I very first started this podcast, it was called The Creative Commute. And this podcast idea came out of a Facebook group that I had created during the pandemic. And that Facebook group was to support our mental health, to support just all of us during this wild time when everything seemed out of control with creativity. And so the initial idea that I had was to pose a creative challenge. And that very first creative challenge was make something magical. And it didn't occur to me at the time why magic was my go-to and why magic was that very first thing that I thought about putting out into the world. And then when I had this question to ask people, that I was like, I want to ask every single person this question, where do you see the magic in the world? At that time, I did not make the connection. I didn't make the connection, even why I was asking that question. And then I began talking about glittery unicorns and everybody being unicorns and like the magic thing, it just pours out of me naturally without me even trying to think about it. I just believe in the magic of every human being on this planet. I believe that we are so full of magic, so full of potential, so full of creativity, so full of possibilities and ideas and just freaking magic. And that is where I see the magic in the world, is in every single person. Every person. And granted, we could say that some people are evil and people do bad things. And yeah, that is definitely true, that there are people who do lots of bad things, but we often don't think about the things that could have happened to them that stopped, that thwarted their actual magic from being unleashed. Like there are terrible things that happen in this world. And, that is just a straight up fact. But it also, to me, does not deny the fact that there is the potential, that there is that creative potential, that we all have a portal to just the infinite, most amazing things that could come from us if we just tapped into it, if we just believed in it, if we just allowed it to come out of us, if we allowed ourselves to shine our brightest shine, to be the magical unicorn who you are. You can feel it, right? Like you can feel that there is something inside of you that you're holding it down. You're like a horse that is like stuck to the fence, you're like tied down, but you just really want to run, right? You can feel it. I can feel it. And that's where the idea for me of Untethered came about. It's like, we are just so tied down by all these things that our magic just can't run free. Like we just desire so badly to be free. And at the same time, we're living in a way that is not free. We're holding each other down, stopping each other from being free to be fully our most authentic, most magical, most amazing selves. There's so much freaking potential in you. and it's calling to you. You can feel it. If you can't feel it, then you might, come work with me and do some breath work and do some embodiment work, and I'll come support you in coming back into your body because it's there. Just saying. It's there. Every single one of us was brought to this world with a mission. And whether you're religious or spiritual or new age spiritual or not anything at all, like, why else do you have the gifts that you have? Why have you had the experiences that you've had? Why do you enjoy the color red so much when somebody else might like green? Like, we all have these things that are just preferences for us. I was just interviewing on a podcast, and it was such a fun conversation. And she was like, how do you help people to discover what it is that they like? How do you help them on their alignment journey? And my answer to her was, well, first, a lot of times we start with things that people don't want because that's easy. Like when I did hair, it was so easy to help people identify what they don't want. Like, okay, I don't want the bob. I don't want it to be so thick at the bottom. I don't like this. I don't like that. What haircuts have you had in the past that you didn't like? Like, did you not like it big on the top? Did you not like it when it was really dark brown? Did you not like those big chunky blonde streaks? Like, what didn't you like? Because that's such a great place to start because it's easy. Our world is very focused on the things that we don't like, that we don't want, all the negative. It's a very easy place to go. And so there's nothing wrong with that. But once we've identified what we don't want, it's like, okay, let's push that aside. And now we are going to train you, and we are going to start spending more time saying, what do you like? When you were 7 years old, what did you like? What lit you up? When you were 7, that's like my favorite question. And you've heard it if you've listened to this podcast plenty. When you were 7, what did you love to do? What did you love to do? Was it climbing on the monkey bars? Was it pushing kids until they were laughing so hard and just like screaming on the merry-go-round? Was it pushing it so hard until it went so fast and then you were so challenged to grab onto that and hop onto the merry-go-round, letting your legs fly out behind you? This was me. This was fully me. I loved the merry-go-round. I loved pushing it. I loved everybody just being delighted. It was so much fun. So what was it for you? What did you love to do? And here's the follow-up question for you. What was it about that thing that you loved? What was it about that thing that you loved? So whether it was climbing the monkey bars or playing Foursquare or playing tetherball or playing on the merry-go-round, for me, I'll share for me, it was just the delight of the other children just having so much fun. And then the challenge of hopping on there. So I love to help others laugh and have fun, but I also love a good personal challenge involved in it. And I can see that theme, y'all, through my entire life. And I've never actually used this example or thought of this myself. This is totally on the spot right now. But if I think about it, I'm like, ooh, I can see that theme through my entire life. So do that for yourself. You pause this episode right now, or do this later, jot it down to do it later. What was something when you were 7 years old that you loved to do? And what was it about that thing that was fun for you? Think about the fun. So we spend so much time in the negative things that we don't want. Our job, and my job as a coach, is to help people train their brains into the fun, because that's the portal. That's the magic. Your magic is your fun. The things that are fun for you, that's the magic that you get to create in the world. It's like you have this bag of glitter in your chest. It's like just full of magical glitter of whatever color, whatever variety you would want. Mine is like iridescent purple. It's like all different colors when it like shines. And I used to want an eclipse. Do you remember the eclipse car? I'm really dating myself, but I wanted one that was like that purple color that looked like a different color in the sun. You would every once in a while see somebody with that paint job on the, on the eclipse. Anyway, that's the color of my magic glitter. And when you are having fun, when something is fun for you, when something's delighting you individually, you are making magic in the world. But we're so focused on the negative. So the magic is in us having fun, unleashing our gifts, contributing in a way that brings more light and less of the shadow into the world. And that is where I see just so much potential in every single human, is in that little bit of magic that you individually bring. And that's where we can also begin to make more money, have more abundance when we're having fun. But unfortunately, we've been raised in a society where we've been led to believe that actually the more miserable you are, the harder you work, the worse the job, the more serious the job, the more money you're going to make. And it doesn't have to be that way. It's actually not necessarily that way. Being miserable and making a lot of money, that's like so many people are in that situation, and we don't want to be there. You see people just burning out left and right in that situation. And a lot of times we get to the point of misery and don't end up actually making a lot of money because we're miserable. And the best way to have more abundance is actually to love what you're doing and to love it. And sometimes we even start to hate something that we love because we're so focused on the negative that you could actually have a job. This was me. This was me too. You could have a job that actually does bring you joy, that is very aligned for you. But because you're so focused on the negative aspects of it, the things about it that don't necessarily fully light you up, and you're less focused on the things about it that are so great and wonderful, that you start to slide backward. You start to slide into burnout. Maybe you're not even making as much money as you were, or maybe you're just staying in the same stagnant place and not growing. It's really about that focus. And that focus, we've got to shift it into the magic. So I like to talk about glitter. I like to talk about glitter and snakes. The snakes are the fear, are the negative, and the glitter is the magic that you have inside of yourself. And we have to start spending more time in that magic. And I'm not witchy. I'm not into the whole, I'm a little bit woo-woo, but not like fully witchy magic. I'm talking about just your creativity that exists just for you. It's just for you. There's nobody else that can do the things that you do. Nobody else can do it exactly in the same way that you would. And that's why there's so much space in this world for more podcasters, for more writers, for more coaches, for more teachers, for more of anything. There's so much space. And we will often think that, oh, there's already so many people doing it, but there is not anybody doing it exactly like you're doing it. I use Michael Jordan as an example all the time because he's so talented and we all know exactly who he is. But how many other basketball players were there before him? Plenty. How many other basketball players were in the NBA at the time of him? He could have said, oh, there's already so many talented players. I don't even need to try. There's no space for me. But he brought his own unique style. There was nobody else doing it the way that he did it. And the same is true for you. There's nobody else that can bring your unique style, even if you're working at a coffee shop, like the way that you enjoy writing on those cups, the way that you call out somebody's name, the way that you show up to work and bring smiles to your other coworkers and all of the people who come into that space. The more you bring you to the table, somebody who comes into that coffee shop might be like, oh my gosh, have you ever thought about, doing this? Did you know that there's a guy across the street who is also into whatever you're into because you struck up a conversation with them? Like, that is how actual opportunities happen. That is how actual relationships happen. They say it's not about what you know, but who you know. And that is so true. But you can create so many more connections than you even realize that you possibly could. I've met people in the past few years that I'm like, it's wild. People will say to me, how do you know How do you get people on your podcast? Like, how do you know all these people? How do you get to know them? It's like following my joy, just doing things that are fun for me, getting in coaching groups, getting in business groups, asking questions, getting curious, starting a podcast, going to podcast events. I meet really cool people. And this could be true for you in whatever thing lights you up, in whatever makes your magic glitter shine. The more that it starts to shine, the more you start to sprinkle it out into the world, other people see that shine and they want to be part of it. They want to help you. They want to spread your glitter too. They want to mix their glitter up with your glitter, and together you've got some new blend, right? That's how collaboration happens. So the magic in the world, and I love this question. I've heard so many people say so many things. I've heard the magic is in the cardinal that comes into my backyard every day. The magic is in the smile of my grandchildren. The magic is in just the way that the sun looks just before it goes behind the horizon. I've heard so many people say this in how many interviews have been on this podcast? 80 different ways. But to me, it's in you. And it's in each of those interview guests, because them seeing that magic, like what you see in the world, the magic that you see is part of your magic, is a reflection of that magic that's inside of you. It's in you. You hold it. And are you hoarding it? Are you hoarding your magic? Don't hoard your magic. The world needs it. That's why you have it. You don't have it to hang on to it. This isn't like chocolate bars and you've got to like hide them in the cabinet up away from your children and grandchildren. It's not your special chocolate that you need to hang on to. It's boundless. And actually it gets shinier and it gets better and it gets more awesome, and it just accumulates more and more and more. The more you spread it, the more you share it, the more you help others see your magic. We have to shine. You have to shine. You're meant to shine. Why aren't you shining? Are you hoarding your magic? You hanging on to that glitter? Do you have it under lock and key? Do you even know it's there? It's not your fault if nobody showed you your magic. It's not your fault if you don't believe that it's there. But it is, because you're listening to this podcast right now, and I just told you that it's there. It is now your responsibility. Once you know, what you don't know is not your fault, but once you know, you got to do better, okay? It is your responsibility to unleash that magic. It is your responsibility to get curious. What might be fun for me? What might my unique sparkle look like? That is your responsibility. That's each of our responsibility. It's our job in this world to unleash that, to sprinkle it, to make the world a better place. That's our job, to evolve, to transform, to change, to make better this place that we are living in. And if we keep focusing just on the things we don't want, that's just going to grow. That does not, your glitter goes nowhere. You're hanging out with a bunch of snakes. Get out of the snake pit and into the magical, glittery, unicorn, delighty surprise. It's where all the fun stuff is happening. That's where the 7-year-olds are hanging out, spinning around on the merry-go-round. So that is where I see the magic in the world. And I also would love for you to understand that the things that delight you, that you see in other people, the magic that you see in other people, is a reflection of yourself. So if you see something in me, if you enjoy this podcast, if you're listening to this podcast right now and you're like, oh, I would love to be that silly and talk about this, or whoever in your life is somebody that you admire, you're drawn to. Maybe it's an actress or a coach or a mentor or your grandmother, somebody in your life. Whatever you see in that person, both positive and negative, but we're focusing on the positive. We're not going to talk about shadows that much today. But what you see in them is a reflection of your highest self, is a reflection of your magic, is a reflection of your highest and best, your potential, your greatness. You're seeing it. And then they are just a mirror for you. So what do you see out there? What magic are you seeing out there? The beauty that you might see in that cardinal in your yard is the beauty that you're seeing in yourself. What is that little bit of fieriness that you have in yourself that exists? Unleash that. Make it happen. That's what this podcast is here to help you do, because we're so tethered. We're so tethered to these things that are holding us back. And the way to release those tethers is truly to lean into that fun, into that joy. And I know that it's not always easy, but it's actually easier than we think it is, because we're focused on all those other things. But I look like my vision for this world is a world where each of us just really, truly embraces that magic that is inside of us. That each of us is just free to be our full and authentic and beautiful and magical and wonderful unicorn selves. And you get to make that choice today, which side you're going to lean to. And I hope you lean into the magic. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you also answer for yourself. Where do you see the magic in the world? If you'd like to share your answer to that, you can take a little screenshot of this post and you can share it on social media, share where you see the magic in the world, invite other people to listen to this podcast, Untethered with Jen Liss, and I will reshare anything that you share. You can also send me an email to hello@jenliss.com. I would absolutely love to hear your feedback or thoughts on this episode. Thank you again so much for listening. You just keep shining your very magical unicorn self out there for all to see. I'll see you next time.